Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. We're back with Michael, our head of written research, for our weekly update. And crypto's been pumping, ETH's been pumping. Happy days after that brutal few months we endured, Michael.
Yeah, it was starting to test everyone's patience, that's for sure. But luckily, we've had a good move, and for those that held on to ETH or filled their bags up, congrats.
Yeah, we're kind of talking about how it's definitely not dead. It's definitely still a blue chip. This can all turn around. And man, oh man, it's turned around very, very quickly.
Yeah, I don't think she's done either. I think that this will just be a bit of a trend now. So yeah, I think there's a lot of people who got caught on the sidelines still, who are waiting for another leg down. But that's always the way, isn't it? You think one more leg up and I'll sell, one more leg down and I'll buy, and sometimes it just never comes. And so yeah,
Yes. Absolutely. We've
yeah.
got plenty of exciting stuff to get into today. So, if you want to share screen and dive into these tabs, and there's one project in particular that I'm pretty excited about, low market cap gem we'll share with people.
Yeah, well, just general market overview. So we've finally hit some bullish territories. I think a lot of this obviously is still very tariff related. Like, Trump started to pull back on the aggression a little bit, I guess, and maybe we're not as hostile to some of the big players. I know that there was a UK deal. There seems to be a pause from China, and it's just given Bitcoin the ability to rally again. And I think we all feel much more comfortable when Bitcoin sits over 100K. It just we're still very attached to Bitcoin, and so it's a comforting sight to see. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think with ETH, we must have literally recorded the day before, even a few hours before that bottomed, and now look at it, 42% in a week.
Yeah, mental, absolutely mental. And so, like, great recovery, and to show that there's resilience in that and still fire in the tank. Because I think you can see here, even like, gas is still so low over on Ethereum. Like, Ethereum's very cheap to use right now. So a lot of that probably hasn't translated to on-chain use at all yet. But ironic that there was the Pectra upgrade, ETH ripped. And so now I guess the next leg would be for, I guess, on-chain metrics to come back. And there does seem to be a sentiment pivot inside Ethereum that they want to go back to, let's scale the main net, let's scale the base chain now that L2s are fully fledged and there's a new one every week.
Yeah, and we spoke about how it just needs to get a new narrative, and that Pectra update was probably the thing that just brought the eyeballs and attention back, as well as the chart had bled out for a while, and sometimes all those just fundamentals and technicals align, and then you get this big boost. So yeah, great to see.
Well, diving into, I guess, some of the big things that have happened over the last week. So Coinbase is now in the S&P 500, and Coinbase had a bit of a rip. I think it went from 200 to 260 US on its inclusion. And so this is just great for the industry because you've got now the premium exchange based out of the US now part of everyone's portfolios, and all of these funds and indexes that are now going to be buying base or coin stock. Yeah, really great to see that there's just another like really credible company that's now institutionalized essentially.
Yeah, and it's probably going to perform as well as the stock market, as well as outperform as people look for crypto exposure, and just gives it that legitimacy being in S&P 500. So yeah, just all bullish tailwinds.
A lot of people, I guess, have been using this as well, a bit of a beta play, so they can get involved in Coinbase, and it's kind of like just buying the market because as the market rips, obviously that's going to drive revenues to Coinbase. I know that there's lots and lots of other like YouTubers who talk about how they count it as one of the blue chips with Solana, ETH, and Bitcoin, and they also buy, coin stock.
Yes.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch this space, but it does flow on to the next sort of, oh, no, the next one that I wanted to chat about, and that's so we've heard these guys here, SuperState, are really also really trying to push stocks on chain. And I do think that this is going to be the major catalyst that sort of drives our industry forward. It will be bonds and stock trading actually starting to move on chain and starting to trade 24/7. And for those that, like a lot of people, I think that are from the community or the blockchain community, and I'm in this camp, is that crypto was your first exposure into financial markets. And so I've gone and retroactively gone and learned about financial markets after learning about crypto first.
Yeah.
And so for those that don't know, you've got like the New York Stock Exchange, and you've got, you know, some of these big exchanges that exist around the world. So we've got the Australian Stock Exchange here, the ASX. But these exchanges are almost like your crypto exchanges, where not necessarily every company is listed there. They're privately owned. It's not like it's some government like owned entity. And so there's fully a world where there could be these companies list their shares on a blockchain backed exchange and they trade 24/7. And obviously there might be a regulatory thing around that, but
Yeah.
that could come.
Yeah, and it says the goal here is 24/7 trading. And like you described, a lot of these global stock markets might trade 10 till 4, 6 hours in that day, 5 days a week. So it's really 30 hours of trading, which is not much more than, a 24-hour day in the crypto world. We've spoken in the
Yeah.
past about how crypto might feel like 7 to 10 times faster and all that type of thing. And in the past, when we had, other exchanges that have products like a gold or an oil or a stock product, and if you knew that there was going to be maybe a big dump on Monday at open after a weekend event, you could actually trade those, and there was really good opportunities for arbitrage. So I'm excited to see what comes of all this with similar stuff, as well as that exclusivity of private companies. Some of these bigger firms are allowed to trade after hours, and so you've got so much of an edge over the little guy, and we're just trying to level the playing field.
Well, imagine when all of these all of these companies actually start trading like they are cryptocurrencies. Their stock starts trading like it's a cryptocurrency. Like that's next level. Then if you imagine you've got Bitcoin or ETH pairs against Tesla, but it's not some synthetic derivative. It's actually Tesla. This is where the price of Bitcoin could go anywhere. And obviously stablecoins is going to be a big trading pair, but there will be the option to trade the chart of the Magnificent Seven against Bitcoin. This is the world that we want to live in.
Yeah, taking profits on your stocks pumping into Bitcoin. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. This is one that we had from the community throughout the week, Solana name service. And I know that you got a track record here where you were one of the first that spoke about the Ethereum name service a gazillion years ago.
Yeah.
Solana's turn.
Yeah, so it's 6 years ago now. Crazy to believe when I think this was the first video on YouTube telling people to start buying .eth domain names. And now we've got the Solana name service, and Jason, who we've had on the channel a number of times now, he's always across the Sol ecosystem, so I'm sure he cleaned up in this airdrop that they've just done. But this is currently at 6 million market cap versus the Ethereum name service at 900 mil market cap. So this airdrop's just gone live. There's not a lot of liquidity floating around yet, but this is one to keep an eye on and probably take a position in, I would say, and check your wallets if you're a Sol user for this airdrop as well, because we've seen all the metrics that Jason's covered in videos about how Sol very much is now catching ETH in a lot of these engagement metrics and usage metrics and stuff. So I see no reason why people aren't going to be excited to start buying up their .sol names and that type of thing.
Just a shout out as well that this also went out to the private community first. And so if you want to be real time on some of this alpha that drops from the team, come join, because these are the opportunities that can make and break a portfolio.
Yes.
Another one is about moving stocks on chain. I guess SuperState, we've kind of already covered this, but this is going to be really, really interesting because I think there's so many companies that are going to compete for this space. All right, so this is another interesting one which I've stumbled across throughout the week. So those that don't know, Lugano is one of these cantons in Switzerland where they actually have Bitcoin as a currency. All of Switzerland hasn't adopted Bitcoin El Salvador style, but Lugano has. And so Lugano is divided up into cantons, and they're all quite affluent. And so this is a place where Bitcoin can be used as legal tender. And so this was an event, like a very VIP private event that was run by a VC in Lugano this week. And I went through and I've been following this account, looking at like a lot of the talks that have happened. This one caught my eye. So you can find the Twitter account here, Decentralized Lugano. But this one I found very interesting. So this guy here, I forget his name, but he's the founder of Energy Web, which is a blockchain that was trying to decentralize countries' energy grids and that making it so that energy could be traded like a commodity, and energy credits, but also energy itself. And the Australian regulator has actually signed up for this as well. So they've got a lot of interesting stuff. So EWT is the ticker. They've been around for a long time though, so it's not anything new, Energy Web. But in this video, what he was mentioning, which I found very interesting, is that a lot of the metrics around AI and AI's progression taps out at 2027. And most charts end at 2027 because most AI models are predicting that by 2027, the human developer that is building these AI models will no longer be needed, and that the AI will be able to start building themselves, and that the exponential growth in what AI will be able to do will just be insane, and no one can chart it, no one can measure it. So what he was saying this means is that now the only bottleneck is going to be compute. And so this is probably the other like area that I've now really started to focus on. We've got the institutionalization of blockchains and stocks and commodities and everything coming on chain, but compute is going to be the new oil if it's not already. And this is very interesting where like a scaling of AI and its power is only going to be hindered by how much compute and how much energy that it can absorb. Super interesting.
And this ties into geopolitics with chip manufacturers, tensions with China, even this stuff going on in India as we're trying to maybe move to the cheapest labor forces, and where can we get these rare earths from with different trade deals and stuff. So this all ties into this very concept you're talking about.
Well, look what's happened with oil over the years. Like, I mean, the Saudis obviously had a security deal with the US, and that the US would always protect them as long as that the Saudis denominated oil in US dollars. And if we're moving away from, the petrodollar and everything's going to be determined on compute power, which will still require energy, it just adds another element into that. And so, yeah, access to chips has already been like a really like hot point, but who's going to be able to build out the most data centers? Who's going to be able to actually generate the most? Like everyone's got these chips in their pocket. Can you build a grid together that starts building all of these things together? And I've got a write-up of a project that's doing that, allowing everyone's phone to be able to contribute just a little tiny bit of compute, and it turns it into one massive data center of mobile phones. That's coming. I'll have a write-up on that shortly. But the one that obviously that we've been talking about mostly is Bittensor. I think Bittensor is a very, very interesting play here. We spoke a little bit about it in the VIP call 2 weeks ago, about how out of all of the projects that are running right now that are focusing on compute, this is one of the more interesting ones because it does exactly that. It knits together all these different data centers. And the beta play here is being able to try and get how can you get access to some of this like data and data scraping and the value that it generates just outside of the Tau token. And there actually are subnets which exist underneath the Bittensor network. So if you took Ethereum and flipped it on its head, and that the base layer was the L2s and they all contributed to the power of the L1, That's what Bittensor does. Very interesting technology.
Yeah. And also scary in many ways as we're heading towards this technocracy, if they're going to start using all our mobile phones and that sort of thing. So yeah, two sides to it as always.
We had a couple of questions around like, how do you get involved in some of this Bittensor ecosystem? So taostats.io, you can go and have a look here, and you can actually track this by subnets. So the subnets themselves are all numbered, and they've all been around for, quite some time. Oh, I've just gone too far. If I can go back there. So you can kind of see like what each subnet is called, what they actually do, what they actually do for the network. And these are tradable. A lot of them have tradable tokens. And some of them are actually quite interesting in what they actually do. And so a lot of this is opt-in, opt-out. Do you want to contribute to the network? Do you not want to contribute to the network? But there's a play here that I'm looking at both from a Tau perspective, the Bittensor token, because a lot of them are traded against Tau, but also just the actual projects in and of themselves, because while they contribute to the larger Bittensor network, they're all independent businesses that are running some sort of compute for a specific purpose as well. So we'll keep an eye on this, because I wouldn't surprise me if some of these started hitting some pretty big valuations. And I think the biggest one right now is only about a 60 million FDV.
Looking forward to that write-up then. Good stuff.
So moving away, I guess just the general alpha is back on Memecoins. Pump Fun is now officially sharing creator revenue. So I would expect to see another sort of Solana leg here. I think that, monkey is what monkey is, and so I think we're going to actually have just like meme coins, which are just going to pump again. Like we've
Yep.
seen some of the main meme coins, like Fartcoin has absolutely ripped. I think it's like 8x at the moment from the lows. So watch just the peak and the pivot, and everyone will go back to, like addicts that we all are. We'll go back to the trenches, and meme coins will start ripping again, especially as revenues now start being shared. You've seen these guys made an obscene amount of money, just millions on millions in fees that came out from the last meme coin cycle. And they've now pocketed that. And now they're thinking, okay, now for the next run, we're going to start sharing revenues. I'll flag it again. I don't buy meme coins and I don't speculate in meme coins, but I think it's absolutely a driver for the general industry. And you watch Solana rip again as a result. So it's coming.
Yeah, love it or hate it, they're there. And again, like I said, in the Stacks ecosystem, we saw the meme coins, and I think Flat Earth was the top performing meme coin since we bottomed and bounced. So love it or hate it, these meme coins are where these crazy gains are to be made if you're trying to time the market and then get back out and buy more Bitcoin, or it's just your play money, whatever it is. But it's obviously a small percent of your portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so I think it's just trying to watch the space. Like we've said, none of these things work the same way every single time. So you just need to be nimble enough. And if anyone's learned anything from what we've experienced, is that you can't just kind of be a maximalist even with your investing. You can't go all in, all out, all in, all out. I think keeping some cash on the side is always important in case there is another leg down, but also having exposure in case there isn't another leg down.
Awesome, mate. Well, that's been fantastic as always. For members, keep an eye on all Michael's great research that's coming through the feed and in the Facebook community as well. Otherwise, we'll talk to you again next week, mate. Cheers.